When I recall that evening, a shiver still runs through me, even now, long after it happened. I can still feel it, the warmth, the tension, the overwhelming sense of something inevitable unfolding before me. It all began on a Friday night. It should have been an ordinary evening: dinner, a glass of wine, maybe a movie before bed. But instead, my home turned into a battlefield. My husband, Anthony, was drinking again. It wasn't new, but this time it was different. This time there was rage in his eyes, something dark and bitter curling around him like smoke. I smelled the whiskey before I saw him, the sharp burn of it lingering in the air. "Where the hell have you been?" His voice was thick, slurred slightly. I frowned, slipping off my heels. "At the gym," I replied, knowing he was aware. He let out a short, humorless laugh, shaking his head. "Of course, the gym, like always." I paused, watching him carefully. Over the years, I had learned how to gauge his moods, how to measure his anger like reading the signs of an approaching storm. "Anthony, you're drunk," I said, keeping my voice even. "And you're always gone," he shot back, his voice rising. "Always running off, always acting like this house isn't enough for you." I stiffened. "That's not fair." He let out a bitter laugh. "Fair? I give you everything, Camilla. Everything. And what do I get? A wife who barely looks at me anymore." His words stung, but I didn't let them show. "I don't want to fight. Then stop making me feel like I'm not enough for you." His voice cracked through the room, loud and unrestrained. I took a slow breath. This wasn't going anywhere. "Anthony, you need to sleep this off," I said carefully, moving toward him. "We'll talk in the morning." But he didn't want to talk. His hand slammed against the kitchen counter, rattling the glassware. "You're not listening to me." I flinched, my pulse spiking. He wasn't violent. Not once in all the years we had been together had he ever hurt me, but this was the closest he had ever come. I took a step back. "Anthony, stop." The words came out sharper than I intended, but I needed him to hear me. Something flickered in his eyes for a moment. I thought he might step forward, might do something neither of us could take back. Instead, he exhaled roughly, rubbing a hand over his face. Just go, Camilla." I hesitated. "Go." His voice cracked again, raw and desperate. My hands were shaking as I reached for my phone. I didn't want to leave him like this, but I couldn't stay. Not tonight. I needed someone to talk to, someone to fix this, and I knew exactly who to call. Victor, Anthony's best friend, the man who had been there since childhood, who knew him better than anyone, the one person who could talk sense into him when no one else could. My fingers trembled as I dialed. The phone rang once, twice, then his voice, deep and steady. "Camilla." I swallowed hard. "Victor, I need you." Silence. Then, in that same calm, unwavering tone, "Where are you?" I exhaled, gripping the phone tighter. "Home. It's Anthony. He's not himself tonight." Another beat of silence. "I'm coming." 15 minutes later, Victor was at my door. And the moment I saw him, something inside me shifted. He was tall, broad, a presence that filled the space effortlessly. Where Anthony was chaos, Victor was control. Where my husband lashed out, his emotions spilling over recklessly, Victor contained his power, wielded it with precision. He stepped inside, his dark eyes scanning the room, taking in the mess, the tension lingering in the air. "Where is he?" Upstairs, I murmured, my voice quieter than I intended. Victor nodded, rolling his shoulders slightly before moving past me. And as he walked toward Anthony's room, I felt something strange, something dangerous flicker in my stomach. Because for the first time in a long time, I felt safe. Not just safe, but wanted. And that scared me more than anything else. Victor didn't hesitate. The moment he stepped inside, he owned the space. Not through force, not through raised voices or threats, but through sheer, undeniable presence. I watched as he moved with quiet confidence, his broad shoulders squared, his steps unhurried, controlled. He wasn't like Anthony, wild, emotional, erratic. No, Victor was a man who didn't need to prove anything to anyone. He commanded respect without asking for it, without demanding it. And that did something to me, something I wasn't ready to face. I stayed at the bottom of the stairs, listening as his deep voice filled the house. "Anthony," he said, his tone steady, unwavering. "You need to get some sleep." Silence. Then my husband's voice, slurred, but still sharp. "You don't tell me what to do, Vic." I held my breath. Victor didn't react. He didn't flinch, didn't snap back. Instead, he exhaled slowly, his patience like steel. "You're drunk, you're angry, and if you don't cool off, you're going to say something you can't take back." Another silence, then Anthony sighed, long and exhausted. I could picture him rubbing his temples, the fight draining out of him. Victor's voice softened, but didn't lose its edge. "Go to bed. We'll talk when you're thinking clearly." For a long moment, nothing happened. Then finally, I heard footsteps, the creak of the bedroom door. Victor had done it. No shouting, no threats, just pure authority. The kind of authority that made my skin burn. He descended the stairs slowly, his gaze locked onto mine, unreadable but intense. He stopped a few steps above me, making me tilt my head to meet his eyes. I swallowed, my throat suddenly dry. He was so close now, his scent, clean, masculine, undeniably him, wrapping around me like a vice. "Thank you," I whispered. Victor studied me, his expression unreadable. Then his gaze flickered lower, briefly, just for a second, but I felt it like a touch, heat coiling low in my stomach. "You shouldn't stay here tonight," he said, his voice quieter now, but just as firm. "He needs space." I hesitated. "I'll be fine." Victor's jaw tightened slightly. "That's not the point." I inhaled shakily. "Then what is?" His eyes darkened, something unreadable flickering behind them. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he took the last step down, closing the distance between us. I felt small standing in front of him, but not in a way that made me feel powerless. No, it was something else. Something that made my pulse quicken, made my body hum with a need I didn't want to name. "Come with me," he said simply, a command, not a question. I should have said no. I knew what I was playing with. I felt the way my body responded to him, the way every muscle in me tightened with awareness, just being near him. But I didn't resist. I nodded, and just like that, my fate was sealed. The car ride to his house was unbearable. I tried to keep my breathing steady, my thoughts clear, but it was impossible with him sitting so close. His hands gripped the wheel effortlessly, veins visible beneath the dark skin of his forearms. His jaw was sharp under the glow of the passing streetlights, his eyes focused, his presence overwhelming even in silence. I clenched my hands in my lap, fighting the urge to shift, to press my thighs together. This was wrong, but God, it felt so good. Victor didn't speak much, but when he did, his voice sent shivers down my spine. You all right? I exhaled slowly. Yeah. A smirk tugged at his lips. You're quiet. I turned my head, meeting his gaze for just a second. Just thinking about. I bit my lip, looking back out the window. Nothing important. A low chuckle. Liar. I swallowed, my heartbeat hammering against my ribs. I was in trouble because I knew the moment we stepped inside his house, I wouldn't be able to stop myself. The worst part? I didn't want to. The moment we stepped into Victor's home, something shifted. The air was thick, charged with an unspoken tension, a current neither of us acknowledged, but both felt. The space around us seemed to shrink, wrapping us in something dark, something electric. Victor locked the door behind us, his movement slow, deliberate. I stood there, my breath shallow, my body caught between restraint and surrender. The dim lighting cast shadows over the room, stretching across the sleek leather couch, the dark wood floors, the lingering scent of him, clean, masculine, intoxicating. I turned to say something, anything to break the silence, but before I could, he stepped closer, too close. The warmth of his body pressed against mine, his presence drowning out everything else. His eyes, deep and unreadable, pinned me in place, making my pulse hammer against my ribs. You don't have to stay, he murmured, his voice low, rough, dangerous. I swallowed hard, my throat tight. I know. A lie, because I wasn't leaving. Not now, not when my skin still burned from his touch, from the way he had commanded the night, from the way my body ached for something I had tried too hard to deny. His fingers brushed my arm, barely a touch, but it sent fire straight through me. Camilla, he said, my name rolling off his tongue like something forbidden. I tilted my chin, looking up at him, my breath coming faster. His gaze dropped to my lips, his expression unreadable. But I felt it, the war raging inside him, the pull just as strong, just as uncontrollable. I was the one who broke first. I leaned in, my body answering a call I hadn't realized I'd been waiting to hear. And then his lips crashed against mine. The world around me vanished. His hands gripped my waist, pulling me flush against him, his body solid, unyielding. I gasped into the kiss, my fingers tangling in his shirt, feeling the heat of his skin through the fabric. He was fire, consuming, relentless, making my head spin, making my knees weaken beneath me. Victor deepened the kiss, his hands sliding over my back, his touch firm, possessive. Every part of me responded, arching into him, pressing closer, needing more. He moved, backing me against the couch, his body covering mine, his lips tracing a path down my neck, his breath hot against my skin. My head fell back, a soft moan escaping before I could stop it. Tell me to stop, he murmured, his voice thick, his lips grazing my collarbone. I clenched my fingers against his shoulders, my body trembling. I couldn't, because I didn't want him to stop. Not now, not ever. My hands slid up his chest, feeling the muscles tense beneath my touch, the steady rhythm of his heartbeat pounding just as fast as mine. Don't stop, I whispered. His body tensed just for a moment, and then everything changed. The night unfolded like something out of a dream, wild and consuming, a fever I never wanted to break. The couch wasn't enough, the space too small for the intensity between us. Somewhere in the haze of heated touches and tangled limbs, he lifted me, carrying me effortlessly, his grip firm, steady, his breath ragged against my ear. The bedroom was dark, the sheets cool against my overheated skin as he pressed me down, his body following, surrounding me completely. Nothing had ever felt like this, like I was truly seen, truly wanted. His name slipped past my lips like a whisper, my body attuned to every touch, every movement, every quiet word that passed between us. I lost myself in him completely, and I never wanted to be found. The night blurred into something breathless and urgent, our bodies moving in perfect rhythm, as if we had been leading up to this moment for years without even realizing it. Victor moved with purpose, with certainty, but beneath it was something else, something raw. His hands explored me like he was memorizing every detail, every shiver, every soft sigh, and I let him. I wanted him to. The room was dark, but I didn't need to see. I felt everything: the warmth of his skin, the weight of his presence, the deep, steady sounds of his breath close to mine. Every movement, every shift, every touch sent fire through my veins, making the rest of the world fade away. I had never felt so small, so completely at the mercy of something bigger than myself, and I loved it. The night stretched on, the world outside, forgotten. Here, in the space between us, nothing else mattered. No expectations, no past, no future, only this, only him. When the morning light filtered through the curtains, casting golden streaks across the bed, my body was exhausted, my skin still tingling from the fire Victor had awakened in me. I turned my head, my breath catching as I took him in. Victor lay beside me, his arm draped over his forehead, his chest rising and falling in slow, even breaths. The sheets barely covered his sculpted frame, the hard lines of his body relaxed in sleep. But even now, there was something untamed about him, something that made my stomach tighten all over again. I should have felt guilty, but I didn't. I felt alive. His dark eyes flickered open, immediately locking onto mine. A slow, lazy smirk tugged at his lips. "You're staring." I bit my lip, heat creeping up my cheeks. "Maybe." He shifted onto his side, propping himself up on one elbow, his fingers tracing the bare skin of my waist. Regretting it, I swallowed, my pulse quickening. No. His smirk deepened. Good. The sheets rustled as he moved closer, his body pressing into mine again, his lips grazing my shoulder. I inhaled sharply, my fingers curling into the sheets. "I'm not done with you yet," he murmured, his voice rough from sleep but no less dominant. And just like that, I was lost in him again. I didn't leave that day or the next. The hours blurred together, filled with whispered conversations and stolen kisses, with laughter and long, lazy stretches of time where Victor simply traced patterns along my skin, his touch possessive, knowing. He didn't ask when I was going home, and I didn't bring it up because I wasn't ready. I didn't want to go back to the cold silence of my marriage, to the weight of Anthony's expectations, to the suffocating routine that had slowly drained the life out of me. Here, I was someone else, someone free, But Sunday evening came too soon, reality creeping in like an unwelcome guest. Victor sat on the edge of the bed, watching me dress, his expression unreadable, his broad shoulders relaxed, but his gaze followed every movement, every button I fastened, every brush of my fingers against my skin. "You going to tell him?" he asked finally. I paused, glancing at him through the mirror. "No." He nodded as if he already knew my answer, but there was something else in his eyes, something almost resigned, almost expectant, like he knew this wasn't over, because it wasn't. I walked over, my fingers grazing his jaw, tilting his face up so our eyes met. "This doesn't change anything," I murmured. His lips quirked. "You sure about that?" I hesitated. Then, instead of answering, I kissed him, slow, lingering, full of something neither of us was ready to name. And when I finally walked out the door, my pulse still pounding, my body still thrumming with the memory of him, I knew one thing for certain. I wasn't done with Victor. The drive home was a blur. My body still pulsed with the memory of Victor, his touch, his voice, the way he had completely taken me. Every red light, every stretch of empty road only gave me more time to feel it, to let it settle into my skin. I rolled down the window, the cool evening air rushing in, but it did nothing to extinguish the fire still burning inside me. I was ruined, utterly, completely, deliciously ruined. By the time I pulled into the driveway, the house was dark except for the warm glow of the living room lamp. I sat there for a moment, gripping the steering wheel, my breath still uneven. Then I stepped out, my heels clicking against the pavement, my body moving on autopilot. Inside, the scent of home wrapped around me, clean linen, faint traces of my husband's cologne. It should have comforted me, but it only reminded me of what I had done, of the way Victor's hands had gripped my hips, the way his breath had been hot against my skin, the way he had looked at me, not like I was fragile, not like I was something to be cherished, but like I was something to be devoured. "Camilla," my breath caught. Anthony's voice was soft, uncertain, coming from the kitchen. I turned to find him standing there, a glass of whiskey in hand. Not drunk this time, not angry, just tired. Guilt should have slammed into me, but it didn't. Instead, I forced a small smile. "Hey." He studied me for a moment, something flickering behind his gaze. "You didn't come home last night." I exhaled slowly, setting my purse down. "I stayed with a friend." Not a lie, just not the truth. Anthony ran a hand through his hair, his shoulders sagging slightly. I was a mess, wasn't I? I didn't answer. I didn't need to. He let out a humorless chuckle, shaking his head. Victor talked some sense into me. Victor. The name sent another rush of heat through me, completely inappropriate given the situation. "I'm sorry, Cam," Anthony continued, stepping closer, "for everything." I blinked, momentarily caught off guard. This was what I had wanted, wasn't it? An apology, a husband who realized his mistakes, who wanted to fix things. But it was too late because I had already been touched by something else. By him. Anthony reached out, gently tucking a loose strand of hair behind my ear. It was a soft, loving gesture, one that should have made my heart swell. Instead, all I could think about was the way Victor's fingers had fisted my hair, The way his grip had been possessive, unrelenting. "Can we start over?" Anthony asked, his voice quiet. I swallowed, my chest tightening, and then I smiled. Of course, because that was the answer he needed to hear, not the truth. Not that while he was standing there pleading for our marriage, my mind was still trapped in another bed, under another man, replaying the way Victor's mouth had moved over my skin, the way his voice had sent shivers down my spine. Not that even as I kissed Anthony on the cheek and excused myself to take a shower, I could still feel Victor's touch lingering on my body. Not that this wasn't the end. It was only the beginning. The water was scalding hot, but it wasn't enough. I pressed my hands against the cool tile, letting the steam curl around me, trying and failing to wash away the ache still thrumming deep inside me. This was madness. This was dangerous, and I couldn't stop. I didn't want to stop. My eyes fluttered shut, my breath hitching as the memories flooded back. The way Victor had pulled me against him, the way his hands had roamed over me like he owned me, the way he had murmured my name in that rough, commanding voice that made my knees weak. I needed him again. A shiver ran through me, my thighs pressing together as the heat coiled low in my stomach. And then my phone buzzed. I sucked in a sharp breath, my pulse spiking as I reached for it, my fingers still damp, shaking slightly as I unlocked the screen. One new message. Victor, thinking about me. I exhaled slowly, my lips curving into a wicked smile. Me always. A few seconds passed. Then Victor. Good, because I'm not done with you yet. My breath caught, the room suddenly feeling too hot, the water too suffocating. I leaned back against the shower wall, gripping the phone, my body already humming with anticipation, because I knew that this wasn't a one-time thing, that I had tasted something I could never let go of, that no matter how many times Anthony kissed me, no matter how many apologies he gave, my body, my soul, had already made its choice, and it belonged to him, to Victor. And the best part? I didn't feel guilty, not even a little. Days passed, but the fire inside me didn't fade. If anything, it burned hotter, consuming my thoughts, my body, my every breath. I went through the motions of my life, smiling at my husband, sitting through dinners, pretending to be the perfect wife. But at night, when the house was quiet and Anthony lay asleep beside me, my phone would light up. Victor, you miss me yet? Every time my fingers hovered over the screen, my body already answering before my mind could catch up. Me more than you know. Because I did miss him, not just his touch, but the way he looked at me, like I was something wild, something untamed, something his. I told myself I would stop, that this was madness, that I was playing a dangerous game. But then came Friday night. Anthony had planned a dinner, a sweet attempt at rekindling something that had long since faded. I sat across from him at the restaurant, listening to him talk about work, about weekend plans, about us. I nodded in the right places, forced smiles when necessary. But my mind was somewhere else. On him, on Victor, on the way his hands had pinned me down, his breath hot against my ear, his voice a low growl as he took what he wanted. I felt the heat rising in me, my breath hitching slightly as my thighs pressed together under the table. And then my phone vibrated in my lap. I glanced down, heart pounding. Victor. Come to me. I exhaled sharply, my entire body tightening. I shouldn't. I couldn't. But even as Anthony reached across the table, taking my hand in his, telling me how much he loved me, my mind had already made its decision. Because no matter how hard I tried to fight it, no matter how many lies I told myself, I belonged to Victor now, and there was no going back.